Good afternoon, everybody. I guess morning still for our LA area friends. We're doing our first ever opening day baseball and comics roundtable. We normally do this after the World Series because that's when people are most free. But for the second time in baseball history, the season is starting on my birthday, and I thought, what do I want to give myself for my birthday? And I said, I want to talk baseball and comics. So thank you all for joining me for the thing that I've been looking forward to. Well, since I emailed you initially, it's gotten
Happy
me
birthday.
through knowing that it's coming. Um, I'm very very excited, and like I'm gonna lead off with any of you I wound up following more than watching just because I've cut all my cords and not enough of it was on things that I could watch. But did any of you follow the World Baseball Classic? There were some good games there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Venezuela versus Japan game I thought was kind of classic.
Yeah. I saw a bunch of highlights of that. I actually um rewatched the Bad News Bears last night, and as I was watching it, I went, "Oh, so the US team is the Roy Turner Yankees, and the Bears are like everybody else, because I mean, what I love about the World Baseball Classic every year, or not every year, every time it comes around is twofold. First, um, sometimes even with the U.S. teams, there's a lot more just joy shown on the field. I love the way that they have fun.
Aside from
But
the
the other
US team.
thing is because it's in a form that we so rarely see baseball, it's the round robin tournament where the one game can really matter. You see some really unexpected things. I mean, I remember being like an hour late for work when uh the Netherlands, led by Rendell Simon, beat the Dominican Republic that had five MVPs, three Cy Young Award winners, and like six future Hall of Famers on it in 2009. I think 3-1 when or 2-1 with like the sum total of all of the Netherlands hits went 212 feet, but they played good defense and they just held on. And it was like, how? But that's what I love about baseball is that like if you take Mark's mighty New York Yankees and put them up against the actual Bad News Bears, the ones with the 6-year-old in right field, um, the Bad News Bears are probably going to win at least one game in 1,000. And
I
they're
didn't
not going to win
realize
a lot.
until I don't think I realized until this current WBC that Major League Baseball owned the WBC.
Yeah,
In a weird way, that kind of like diminished it a little bit for me.
it does.
Right. I mean, the whole thing was built essentially to spread baseball around the world and ultimately uh, generate more income for Major League Baseball and
Right.
support this, what's become a massive business with hundreds and hundreds of employees. So it's one of those things where you kind of have to enjoy it despite it. But a
Hmm.
lot
Yeah.
of things, as Tad says, a lot of things happen within the event that make that easier.
Yeah.
All the great stories.
And I
But
think with the hope, right, that some team like Italy did this year that goes on a bit of a Cinderella run and
right.
spikes interest in that home country.
Yeah.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anybody have anything that they're really looking forward to this season?
Mariners World Series.
Mariners World Series, of course.
They
Third
are
favorite team.
weirdly the projections I looked at last night have the Mariners with easily no the second widest gap between first and second place in baseball. I think the Dodgers have the biggest between them and second, and then the Mariners are have a I don't know 8 or 9 game gap between them and the next team, which is a bunch of teams that are hoping to win 82 games, basically.
Hmm.
So yeah, if there was a year for the Mariners, this would be it. Beforehand, obviously, things change.
I have actually seen that pick by a couple of people already.
Yeah, they seem to be the
And
sexy pick.
they're a fun team.
Well, let me, if I can ask, hyperbole aside, what do we expect from the Dodgers realistically?
95 is their number.
The Dodgers
Right.
are unquestionably the best team on paper, but they're also a little older.
Right.
And then they seem like they're a little more potential for things to go sideways.
Well,
They have a
and
real-
one of the things I saw pointed out in a baseball column this morning is like, in spite of everything, like we what they only won 92 games last year.
How many?
I mean, 92. I
Really?
mean,
Wow.
to say
They had a
only,
rough middle season.
yeah, to say only 92, like if you're a Royals fan, you're kind of upset with me that I said only 92. But like given the way we treat the Dodgers,
Right.
92 wins is and what it was Craig Calcaterra, I think, that I was reading, and what he pointed out was that like the Dodgers are built to have a lot of depth, but essentially what they use their money for is to be able to take the gambles on the guys that they don't actually expect to be able to play a whole season.
Right.
Yeah.
So really what the Dodgers are playing for is if they get into the playoffs and if most of their guys are healthy, they're going to be a force to reckon with.
Well,
So they
had so many injuries last year.
yeah.
Right. Here's the thing about what the Dodgers figured out. It used to be I used to always write things like, all the money in the world, that's fine, but you only have so many roster spots, which is then was 25, and you can't find enough guys to spend the money on to fill those roster spots because it's not even 25. Some number of those are players that you're locked into for whatever reasons. You're already paying them, or they're a prospect and they need a chance, whatever it is. Well, the Dodgers basically have 35 roster spots, or 30, and because they know that there's going to be so much churn, especially in the pitching staff, and they don't mind paying $10 million for a guy who's going to give you 60 innings because they have they don't care about. I shouldn't say they don't care about making money because I'm sure they're making a profit every year anyway, but they just don't think about their roster and their payroll the same way that teams have historically.
Because they're even starting with Roki, and he's been bad spring training, right? So, like, that shows you what the Dodgers are doing that other people aren't, which is they have this leeway where they can run with him for a bit to see if he heats up at a certain point. And other teams don't have that runway.
Or choose not to.
Or choose not to. That's
I
fair.
think
A lot
there
of
are
these teams have money, but they just don't spend
that
it.
could do a lot more than they do. I mean,
That's
one
true.
of the things that I laughed at when everybody got upset about the Shohei contract is I'm sitting there going, do you understand how marketable this man is? If you think for a second that they're not making money on that contract, you're insane. If you think for a second that if he manages to play 2 seasons, they won't have made all $700 million back, you're insane. If you think of it if you think of contracts strictly in terms of baseball value, sure, but like teams are businesses, so there's more than just baseball value. For that matter, it's always one of the things that's bothered me in terms of some of the free agent decisions the ball players make. Like when Pedro Martinez left the Red Sox for the Mets, I'm sitting there going, okay, the Mets are giving you $1.5 million more a year. Tell me you couldn't have made that up 10 times over in Boston area endorsements.
You'd probably make that up just by never having to buy a beer again for the rest of his life.
Right.
And for the teams, there's also like the fan retention, right? Like this is what the Rays struggle with and their fans. Like they can't keep fans because they can't keep their stars. Whereas like when they signed Vladdy, when the Blue Jays signed Vladdy, like the fans felt a lot of this was just like the fans were happy about it, right? And they felt like this is a team that I can invest my time in because they're investing in players that we like and can stick around.
And that's where the Mets got a lot of ire this offseason. Our absent pal Heidi still has not gotten over Pete Alonso going away.
Yeah, though, I mean, they also made a lot of good moves. I think you're
Yeah,
gonna like Freddie Peralta. I think you're
I,
gonna
well,
like
I mean, just
Bo Bichette,
to shake my
you know.
fist at the Dodgers again. I mean, I think the one that really hurts is Diaz losing our
Yeah,
closer. You know,
yeah,
but why wouldn't you want to go play with the Dodgers if you were?
right.
Doesn't his
Though,
brother play
like,
for the Dodgers also?
I think Devin Williams is a good bounce back candidate.
Yeah, we'll see.
You
They
know,
look
he's
good in
got
the
some
spring.
great. I mean, I watched him in Milwaukee, and certainly when he was playing the Cubs, I never liked it when he came into the game. You know, um, yeah.
Is
So
Kershaw done or is he coming back?
no, I think Kershaw's done. And actually, that reminds me answering your Dodgers question. Like even in the playoffs last year, they had what, one reliable bullpen arm?
That was a crazy bullpen when you think about it in hindsight.
Yeah.
Like it's nuts that they were going into those games with that bullpen.
Their best bullpen performance of the entire postseason came from a guy who got called off of his couch because they'd had another guy have to leave for a family issue. You know, a guy with how many major league innings? Like five.
He brought it though. Like he was great.
What was his name?
He pitched.
What was his
I'm
name?
trying to remember
I can
right
see
now.
his face
see
in
him
my
too.
mind.
I can too. We will figure it out before the end of this podcast. But yeah, no. I mean that's the beauty of baseball is that there's like no amount of money that guarantees everything. You're a Yankee fan, Mark. You know that. You got payroll went up for the next three, and how good were those?
It's no different in comics publishing, really.
That's true.
That's interesting, Eric. Why do you say that?
Look at the trail of tears of well-capitalized fly-by-night comics publishers.
Yeah.
Do you think it's peripheral question? Something you said. Do you think it's possible to start a comic book company these days?
That's a good question because I think in terms of Fantagraphics, which is really my only perspective, no, I don't think we could. I think we benefit from, being grandfathered into the direct market and, having made the inroads into the book trade that we did 20, 25 years ago. I think it would be really, really, really hard. And I don't think it's, strictly a question of how much startup capital you have. I don't think that's a guarantee of anything any more than
Do
a
you,
bloated
do you even think
payroll
it's
is.
do you even think it's a question of content? Like,
No.
yeah, I see Mad Cave making a decent run at it. Um, but
But
these
they're
other little,
also 10 years old, so they're not really new. I mean, this is their
right,
11th year.
that's right.
You know, I
Yeah.
was thinking that too. Both Mad Cave and Uncivilized feel like they're new and seem to be doing pretty good runs right now.
Hmm.
But like in reality, they're not new. They've been able to hang on for long enough to Iron Circus is similar. So I mean,
Kickstarter
from
might be like the Kickstarter
that
publishers or the digital publishers.
that's where I was going to go is that I don't know that it's impossible to start a comic book company,
I don't think
but
it's
I don't know how
impossible.
much it would. I don't know how much it would look like what Fantagraphics looked like when they started, what Image looked like when they started. Certainly not what Marvel or DC looked like when they started. You'd have to be thinking more about crowdfunding. You'd have to be thinking more about digital markets, library markets. I mean, if you can crack the library market, that's a big deal. And the fact that there are more and more libraries that are stocking more and more comics, not just for kids but for adults, matters. But like,
It only matters in the aggregate, though. It's like it doesn't,
right,
the library market's not gonna sustain you. It's just only if it's another piece of the overall pie. But
Right.
each of those segments, channels, are
Well,
getting
and
more and
then the
more
key is
difficult.
to
They're
get
getting
on
more and more difficult.
syllabuses.
What's that?
Get on syllabuses and reprint a new volume every couple of years, you know, with that extra thing that the students need, get professors to force the book and you're in good shape.
Yeah.
I was talking to a comics teacher recently.
I know startup capital was mentioned, and in my opinion, the startup capital makes it way worse
I
because
agree.
there's that pressure to spend big at the
Yeah.
beginning, and you can't kind of mete out the money where you want, and then company's gone in 2 years.
Yep. I
Well, and
think that's
also
totally right.
startup.
The problem
Go
is
ahead.
so many of the recent startups in comics are still predicated in the same IP farm model,
Right.
and the studios just aren't buying as like they used to, and there's less studios to buy. So it's a rock and a hard place if that's what you're trying to do.
Well, I
Just make
also think
movies,
that
not comics.
in general, startups expect a much higher return on investment than like it's different when you need to break even and pay everybody versus you need to pay back the people who gave you money 10 times over. And
But is the ultimate
um
goal with starting, some of the smaller companies that have started over the last 4, 5, 6 years, is the ultimate goal to put out comic books, or is it to get properties for Hollywood?
it depends on the company. Will Klein, really quick, was the relief pitcher. Managed to find him. um like I've talked to people at Mad Cave, and I think one of the reasons that they're actually holding on is their goal is comics. Whereas one of the reasons that you saw Aftershock and Action Lab really struggle is they were spending as much money trying to sell their IP as they were spending making their IP.
Hmm.
And Mad Cave's contract, I've got two Mad Cave books. It's very competitive, and it's one of the better ones with other media than I've seen recently.
Right.
Um, you see even bigger companies, book publishers, you think would know better, are offering kind of these weak sauce contracts where your name is on the copyright of the book, but all relevant rights are tied up 50-50 with
Hmm.
the big corporate pulp publisher, and it's just unfortunate. But
Right.
I don't think people, to answer your question, Mark, I don't think people are expecting to make money on comics. So it's hard to have a publisher whose business model is for profit comics. You know, Fantagraphics notwithstanding.
Yeah.
What's the what's I don't pay that much attention to it. What's the arc of that company? What's it called? Distillery that Tula Lotay was drawing for and Becky
Well,
Cloonan.
that's the
Well,
ex
they've
Comixology guys, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
and they've already kind of pressed
Well,
pause on
they
everything.
press pause, but they're coming back in the new solicits. So
Yeah.
so April you can like so it seems like their pause was literally look, we had supply chain issues, we had stuff that got in the way rather than trying to rush out and give you an inferior product, rather than folding, we're pushing stuff back, we're regrouping because I think they've got 5 books finally picking up again in the April catalog. That was definitely, I was going to be talking to a couple of people at C2E2 that I know have been doing distillery work and asking if they had, because I mean, overall, everybody that I've talked to that's done work for them is still happy. So, like, whether or not the company, I mean, it's kind of like Bad Idea. I don't know for certain that Bad Idea is making money, but I know that if they're losing money, it's Dinesh and the people at the top that are losing money. They're making certain that their creators are paid up front and still have some back end whatever. I haven't talked to anybody that's like, oh yeah, I did work for Bad Idea and it was terrible. I've talked to people that's like, I did a 10-page for Bad Idea and got paid 3 times as much as I normally get paid for a full comic. And they just gave it away at a con. I'm looking forward to the fact that the bad idea panel is right after one of my panels in the same room, so I might be able to talk to a handful of people off the record in between. Um, that actually is a good way to spin though. Spring season is when we start getting solicits for some of the bigger comics of the year. Is there anything that people have seen coming soon that they're like, ooh, I can't wait to see that?
My big summer announcement hasn't come yet, so the answer is no, you haven't. My thing's coming out in July.
You want to give me an exclusive, Fred?
I can't. I'll be murdered. There's the spies
Okay,
are
so
here
it's a
somewhere.
so it's a sequel to Murder Kingdom. Check.
No, that's my first. That was my first Mad Cave book. That second one's coming out later this year, but that's not what yet.
I'm looking forward to the new Archie stuff.
Yeah, I am.
Through Oni.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about that. What are they retooling?
Yeah, they're kind of rebranding, putting it out as a monthly.
Wow.
Yeah, they've got some interesting creative teams involved. It's going to be really, really interesting to see what they do. I hope. I mean, this is the second time in my lifetime that they've done it, and I think it actually went pretty well the last time. So I'm assuming that it just kind of petered off, and it was time to do something cool again. I feel like that's a good partnership. Oni seems to have pulled itself
take on
out
the
of the
material?
wreckage.
Is there a new take
I mean,
on
I think
that
it's going to be
material?
more modern, but I don't know anything more.
They
than
haven't
that
put
yet.
out that much stuff about it. It's mostly just been teaser art and stuff.
Right.
There's a new Chris Ware comic coming out for the first
Ooh.
time.
That's right.
That's exciting.
A new it's actually another
Acme.
Acme. Yeah, that's right.
When's that coming out?
I think in the fall. It's a drawn and quarterly book.
Yeah. Oh, look at him plugging the competitor.
Well, I was trying to think of something that wasn't Fantagraphics.
You can talk about Fantagraphics books.
There's a lot of good stuff coming from Fantagraphics.
There
A couple
is.
of Carl Barks artist editions. You've got the complete Palomar stories. I mean, that's just the reprint
Yeah,
stuff
probably the thing
coming.
I'm most excited about. I'm not even working on it, so I can kind of tout this without it being too self-serving. Is a big box set of the complete Harvey Kurtzman Mad
Oh
issues.
yeah.
That's cool.
That's totally on my radar.
How big is that going to be?
Well, it's what 20, 27, 30 issues. I forget exactly.
That's cool.
And they're all going to be presented in facsimile form, like
Nice.
bound copies of the original magazines, comics.
Yeah, if you remember the recent first 50 Love and Rockets, it's got a similar design. to
Similar,
that.
not quite as big.
No. Well, it's
yeah.
not 50.
Right. But yeah, same similar concept.
Aren't you also doing the complete Zap coming up in the same?
We are. We did a big box set of the complete Zap in hardcover about a decade ago. And that was a big deluxe $500 box set.
There is this one's only 300.
Yeah. And then the new Zap set is kind of a reconfiguration of that, but in paperback and more of it's still expensive because it's a lot of material, but it's
Right.
It's still a lot more.
I think it's
affordable.
200.
I don't even think it's that much. Although I could be wrong off the top of my head. I was going to say more like 100, but yeah, there we go. Oh, it is 200. You
I may have looked through your catalog recently. I need to send your PR guy my listings.
Well, I'm impressed by your, you mentioned earlier that like Distillery has 5 books in the April catalog. Like
I think it's 5.
How do you
Well, the
track
April
all this
catalog
stuff?
just dropped. The April catalog just dropped, so like I've done my first perusal. but also for our weekly episode, um, we'll highlight items from the catalogs, and we'll make certain that we highlight the stuff that we're really interested in that's coming out or that has FEO. So like I try to stay on top of it so that I can tell my 4 or 5 listeners, hey, go buy this book. But like at least one of my listeners is a comic shop owner, and at least one of my listeners has library connections. So sometimes it gets farther than 4 copies sold.
Take it.
I mean, to be fair, I think I'm up to consistently 30 downloads. And since the downloads don't necessarily represent streaming, I probably have more listeners, but I like to stay humble. And they're certainly not paying me yet.
Each recording is handed out to 5 people. So
yeah, all of my Patreons are family members. So this is me remembering that I should occasionally plug the 22 Panels Patreon. You can give us money. Sometimes I don't know why you want to, but like I have fun anyway. But yeah, no, it's weird to me. I mean, Mark and I have been talking on and off. It's been such a weird year that it doesn't feel like it should be baseball season yet, because the world is just the world.
That too, but also I feel like the postseason was like it was quite late, right? And then we also had WBC.
Right. You know, and like the earliest U.S. start to a baseball season ever.
Short off season.
Right.
I'm never going to get used to opening day being in March. I'm not going to live long enough.
I can't with this opening day thing too. I was complaining about this earlier, which is just like, so we had to watch the Yankees and the Giants, and that's it.
No,
like, what happened to opening day?
I liked it when, you know, I think the Reds always got the first game, but that was because they started at like 1 o'clock. But there was a full slate on opening day, I think, when I was a kid. And
yeah, everybody gets to watch their game.
It should be is full slate opening day. I mean, it's great if you're a Giants or Yankees fan, particularly if you're a Giants Yankees fan and live in the Bay Area and can afford tickets. But for the rest of us, it's like, okay. I mean, it's not even...
I mean, the forecast for Mets opening day, which is tomorrow, up until about a couple days ago, was like 42 degrees, and I'm like, no, I'm not going. My wife's birthday is on April 2nd, so she gets excited and she's like, I want to go to the Mets, so let's get tickets. Right. I want to go for my birthday. I'm like, I don't want. It's going to be 40 degrees on your birthday. I do not want to go. I'm not sitting in a ball.
That is very cold.
It's brutal, man, and it's not going to get warm here for like 2 weeks.
Jeez.
Okay, you know, it's not. It's not Mets opening day if it's March and Tom Seaver isn't starting.
So that actually leads to
on that one.
that leads to a question. You know, we've got a lot of people who've been to a lot of games. What is the worst weather that you've actually gone to a game in, and how many innings did you stay?
I don't know about that, but I do know that some of my favorite games to go to in Seattle are the dreary April days when they draw 10,000 people and you feel like you've kind of got the stadium to yourself. There's something to be said for that. I mean,
do they have a dome and do they have a roof in Seattle?
Well, yeah, we have a what do you call it? A retractable
roof.
But it's still open air, you know.
Yeah, I have frozen my ass off at Mariners games, roof or no roof, because I wasn't smart enough to bring a real jacket or any jacket at all. And there can be sort of a tunnel effect where the wind just goes under the roof right into the stands on the right field side.
That's rough. In California, it's mostly heat. Like 2 years ago, David Harper came out and he wanted to see a Dodgers game, which sucks already because you have to drive all the way there and it's such a mess to get in. And it was like 95 degrees and he wanted good seats, so we had no shade and we were gonna die, but we stayed 9 innings. There were extra innings and we didn't stay for that because I think we actually would have gotten heat stroke. But that was pretty bad.
They were handing out like a David Wright Captain America t-shirt as a giveaway, like some Friday night promotion at Mets, and it was in April and it was low 40s, pouring, and like You're just mopping up, you're using David Wright's face to mop up all the seats as they're just getting rained on. There's
Jeez.
guys walking around in 5 thick David Wright Captain America shirts. I was with a bigger diehard than I am, and we left. We didn't. I don't think made it out of the 6. It's like, screw this, to the bar.
There is exactly one time that I have left Wrigley Field before the 7th inning stretch, and that was a April game against the Dodgers where there was freezing rain. It was 28 degrees with freezing rain, and the Cubs were down 8-0 despite having out hit the Dodgers 6-3 in that time, because in the first 6 innings they'd walked 12 batters and made 4 errors. And when they gave up a 3-run double to the opposing pitcher, I said, okay, that's enough. That's enough. I went across the street to Salt and Pepper, which isn't there anymore, but it was a nice diner that I used to love going to after games. And we watched the rest of the game there. I could not bring myself to leave Wrigleyville, because if by some crazy occurrence we had come back, to be able to say that I was on a train when I found out, that was too much. I had to be nearby. But man, that was brutal. However, there was one day that was as cold and as miserable physically that I've been at Wrigley Field. And what's really annoying is it's one of the few times that I went down at 7 a.m. for a night game, because it was opening day and WXRT radio does an opening day broadcast, and they started at 7 a.m. because Lynn Bramer is the one that did it. Rest in peace. But this year they had a night game opening. So I was down there at 7 a.m. I was there all day. It was like 60 to 70 and sunny most of the day. And like 10 minutes before game time, it started raining and dropped 40 degrees, which is when scalping, because I also went down without a ticket. That's when the price on tickets fell enough that I could afford one. So that got me in. But it was a truly miserably cold experience, except for one thing. We raised a championship banner. So I stayed for all 9 innings. I got to see rings from, like, because the Cubs gave rings to like all of their staff. So like the hot dog vendors and the ushers and whatever, the security people were all wearing their championship rings and more than happy to show them to you. I spent the last 3 innings sitting on a rail with one of the security guards, talking about the fact that she was an accountant, but the Cubs have a system where, like, it's really kind of first, once you get the job, it's like first come until they've got enough people. So she managed to get the gig because she had a gut feeling that the Cubs were going to win the World Series that year, and that was the only way that she was going to be able to go to the games. So she got in the gig. She's like, I'd come down here on the days that I was free, whatnot, but I was at every playoff game.
That's a great story.
I'd show up 2 hours early for work to make certain that I was one of the ones
It's called hacking the system.
right. I had a friend who was a peanut vendor, even though he had season tickets that were incredible. Like, because he A, it got him in, B, make a few bucks, and C, he'd just go down every day and go, do I feel like sitting in my seats, or do I feel like scalping my seats and walking around as a peanut vendor?
Wow.
But yeah, no, I've known lots of people who have gotten various jobs at Wrigley just to be able to go to games. I think that's a common thing for a lot of. I mean, I don't know how other teams run their their concessions and their security and whatnot. But I know the Cubs have always run it in such a way that like your commitment isn't really any more than you want to make it. The pay is decent. The work can be hard, but not grueling, and you get to be at the game in a way that you can actually kind of watch parts of it. You
Chris
know?
Simon from Mad Cave, her mom worked at Wrigley.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know in what capacity yet. I'm trying to get her on the website, but I have to go through
Right.
the Cubs media
Right.
situation, and that's a whole headache. But yeah, I think
That
she
I
worked at
believe.
Wrigley for years.
Yeah. Yeah. I worked in senior care, so I took care of a couple of people who did long term Wrigley work, and one woman who got to go to Wrigley as payment for babysitting because she babysat Charlie Root's kids. Idea of how old she was. She
Wow.
would babysit Charlie Root's kids in exchange for
Wow.
and continue, because of that she had like connections. So and she lived close enough to the ballpark. So I think the first kids that she babysat in exchange for tickets were Charlie Roots, and the last were Stan Hacks. So like 1920s to the like 1940s. And then she passed away, I think 3 months before they won the World Series.
Ugh.
There was a guy, I remember when I worked at Marvel in the 80s, there was a guy in the bullpen doing production work, but he was also an inker, and I cannot remember his name. I could picture him, real nice guy. He was in the band that would walk around Yankee Stadium in the 80s, 90s,
Yeah.
and like five-piece band with the trumpet and stuff.
Right,
I
right. They
remember
used to
the
have one
guy's
of those
name,
at
but
Wrigley too. I loved it.
there's a comics baseball crossover.
Wow. I wonder who
Yeah.
that was. Was it, I mean, it wasn't like Al Milgrom or
No, no, no.
Mhm.
I'm trying to look it up. I can picture him. Short guy.
I don't know my Marvel 80s inkers well enough. I was too young.
I'm trying to think of inkers who worked in the bullpen.
I just started noticing names on comics at all by the end of 1980 or the end of the 80s. So I don't know if I've asked this question with this group of people. Talk to me about like what you remember about falling in love with baseball. It's a good beginning of the season question. What's your earliest? Oh, I'm hooked. Like when you look back, you go, there was no turning back from this point.
I can remember falling out of love with baseball about 5 years ago.
Well, and about 25 years ago.
Yeah.
Because since you fell out of love with the strike, and you fell out of love again with the steroids, and we suck you back from time to time. And
Well,
I'm
that's
going to get
actually,
you going to minor league games now. You fell
yeah,
out
I'm
of
going
love
to
with
start going to
Major
minor
League
league games.
Baseball, not with baseball.
Well, yeah, that's a good question for the group. I'm thinking of because the World Series was enjoyable, and it's the first couple games I've watched in 5 years, other than a couple live games that I've gone to. Is it worth my time getting back into baseball?
Well, but the great thing about baseball is you don't have to devote your full attention to it. You I mean, I had almost exclusively listened to baseball on the radio, and
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing where I'll have it on every night, but I'm not really listening to it. What I hear is the inflection in the voices that kind of perk my interest and, you know, break me out of whatever I'm doing to kind of listen to. And I love it. It's a great rhythm. But to go back to to Tad's question, I kind of when I think back to when I was a kid, it's hard for me to know if like baseball cards and baseball is kind of a chicken and an egg relationship.
Yeah.
And they definitely, the cards definitely fueled the interest in the sport. And then the other big thing I remember as a kid that really like captured my imagination was Fernando Valenzuela's when Fernando Mania. I grew up in Southern
Yeah.
California, and that
I
was
watched one of his no hitters on YouTube recently
yeah. It's like kind of hard.
from that era.
It's almost hard to believe like just what a phenomenon that was at
Yeah.
the time. I also grew up partly in Palm Springs, California, and so we would go to spring training every year. It was like a mile away from where we lived, and
Okay.
go get autographs.
That's something that I haven't done yet and want to. I want to go to spring training.
I was just there a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I did that.
It was great. We used to go to we lived very close to the Gene Autry Hotel, and of course at the time
The
Gene
owner of the
Autry
Angels.
was the owner of the Angels, and the Angels were still in Palm Springs. I don't think there is any spring training in Palm Springs anymore.
I
But,
think it's all Arizona.
They're in
and
Tempe now.
but my dad would take me to the Gene Autry Hotel for breakfast because we would go and just like all the players would be eating breakfast. I remember getting Reggie Jackson's autograph and Ricky Henderson, and
Wow.
yeah.
That's very cool. My story is much more recent, so I have a much clearer memory. I only got into baseball a few years ago. I also grew up in Southern California. I still live there. And growing up, I remember when the Angels won the World Series, and I had some passing interest. But I didn't, like, for me, it was a handful of years ago. Hassats Manelhow, the letterer, was just like, you got to go. Because one fun thing that we do, because we live in very different places, he lives in England, is we'll look up where we live on a map, and he'll be like, well, how often do you go to Disneyland? That's really close to where you live. But how often do you go to the beach? And he was just like, you got to go see Shohei Ohtani pitch at Angel Stadium. And I'm like, I chase novelty. So I was just like, yeah, I'll go watch a game. And I started going to games, and then it just kind of took over my life. And now it's a big part of my life. But it is very different, I think, getting into it as an adult as opposed to as a child, because like, I don't have that long history with it necessarily. I never played the game. I didn't collect baseball cards as a kid. So it is very different.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that it's Haas that got you into it.
Yeah.
Because he's, and I've never managed to get him on one of these, mostly because he's in the UK. Like, there's no good reason for Haas to be a major
No.
baseball fan, except that
He loves American sports.
somebody turned him onto it, and then he kind of like you, Eric. I mean, he tends to have the TV on, but he more listens to the calls while he's working. So he loves the rhythm of. He's somehow a Texas Rangers fan.
Yes.
Don't
He's
know.
all Texas teams for everything.
Right.
No explanation. It's never been to Texas.
That's random.
But yeah, no, I discovered that because he started, he did a thing on Twitter for a while where he would take calls from games and just letter them with nothing else. So just be the word balloon.
I didn't know about that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to look that up.
This was one of the things that I like before I'd reached out to. It was one of the things that went, well, I kind of wanted to talk to a letterer anyway, and Haas is amazing, but like he's got baseball tweets. I gotta reach out. So I mean that's how he wound up on 22 panels to begin with. Is like I wanted to talk to him about these. I saw these, so I then looked into it. And I'm like, wait a minute, he's of Indian descent in Great Britain. He's a baseball fan. How? What?
And the funny thing is, he doesn't even follow like English sports.
No.
Like he has no interest in cricket or whatever. He's like, he watches basketball, he watches football, he watches baseball.
Right. And I think baseball's the one that he came to last, but the one that he likes the most, at least when I was talking to him.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an adult baseball fan as well. I mean,
Yeah?
I'm kind of a nerdy, picked on kid. So, I the total disdain for sports. What's the Dark Knight Returns line? The sports is the weapon of the enemy. We do not use the sports.
Yeah.
But then my wife, she's my girlfriend at the time, was a huge 80s Mets fan. So took me to a Braves Mets game during the Piazza era. And I just fell in love immediately. It's weird. Like baseball is like very structured. There's a lot of numbers involved. And it's great if you have like an OCD, like addictive personality. Like
Yes.
I'm shocked at how, but by the end of the 99 season, I was completely hooked. And I think literally we went on July 4th. It was the July 4th game.
But Fred, I am confirming myself. I thought you were from Ohio, and you are.
I am. Yep.
You weren't a Reds fan as a kid?
Well, I'm from Cleveland, so we would have been
Oh,
what was then
okay.
the Indians.
Gotcha.
No, I was I had a total hostility to sports. I often find that in my geek compatriots. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's either I hate sports, they're the tool of the enemy, or I'm as crazy addicted as everyone else. That's definitely me.
I
Though
share
there
that.
is definitely there is a very select group that's like me, where the crazy addiction is only to baseball.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I don't.
I mean,
I
people are like,
follow basketball. I
yeah,
wrote the comic history of basketball.
right. People will say to me that, like, oh, I'm not into sports when I'm talking about baseball. I'm like, I'm not into sports anyway either. I'm into baseball.
Right.
I differentiate between the two, and I think a lot of it is what you were just talking about. Like, there is that set of rules and the stats and all the ways to be OCD with it, but it's also so creative and open-ended because the outfield wall doesn't have to be, the foul lines can reach for forever, and it's not amount of time that you play, it's a number of outs that you need to get, and like all of that stuff. I mean, I recently discovered that, I mean, two things. First, if any of you read the I think it's Robert Coover's book, the Universal Baseball Association by Henry H. Waugh, proprietor. It's a fantastic novel that's all about this guy who created his own Stratomatic type game and then fell into it. So he's rolling dice to like decide if they went out partying the night before or if they got divorced or whatnot. But what I discovered recently is Jack Kerouac had a similar game that he made up that he would play, and he'd draw scorecards, he'd draw programs, he'd do the postseason, wrap up that wasn't just about the games, but like all of the players that he created would have personalities and whatnot. It was like how he entertained himself on the road, and I'm sitting there going, I mean, now I need to track down Coover to ask if that was the inspiration, but B, like, how cool is it that like this sport inspires not just rah rah, I want my team to win, but like all of this cool storytelling. And I mean, you read W.P. Kinsella works, and everybody knows Shoeless Joe, which became Field of Dreams, but like the the Iowa Baseball Confederacy is just a crazy good book, and he's got a ton of short stories. Ring Lardner baseball short stories are amazing. We
What's
don't have enough U.S.
what,
comics yet, but there are how many baseball mangas that are all just, at least all the ones that I've come across, are just fun.
does anybody have a favorite piece of writing about baseball? Nonfiction, fiction, whatever.
The boys
Favorite
of
all
summer.
time is hard.
Yeah, I was about to say so many.
I was going to say, out of books last year, I really enjoyed this book that I read called Inside Japanese Baseball, I think is what it was called. And it's all, I know very little about NPB, and it's all just interviews. And they format it into essays from people who work throughout NPB. So he interviews like the cheerleaders, the beer girls, a commissioner, like the mascot. And that was really interesting.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
What did you say, Fred?
Boys of Summer, Engels. The Boys of Summer is probably my favorite.
Is that Halberstam?
What's that?
Is that David Halberstam?
No, it's Roger Engel. Who just
Oh,
passed
Roger
away
Engel.
relatively
Okay, yeah,
recently.
Roger Kahn.
New Yorker. What?
Roger Kahn wrote Boys of Summer. Is that
Very well.
the Dodgers book?
Yeah, the Brooklyn Dodgers.
That's Roger Kahn. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
Roger Angel is also awesome.
I just found out that Roger Angel didn't get into baseball until like they had started the Mets, and he was like sent to cover like the beginning of the Mets, and then he fell in love through that.
True.
Have any of you read Don DeLillo's Underworld? The
Not the
first
whole
100
thing. I read the baseball part in the beginning,
Yeah, the first 100 pages.
which they turned into a standalone book.
I think that's my favorite. It's just it's the
fantastic.
shot heard round the world game. And it's the most immersive baseball experience in prose that I've ever read. It's great. It's actually one of my favorite pieces of prose of any kind I've ever read.
There was a great, my memory's gone. There was a great book, came out about 15 years ago. Uh, I think the author was from Ohio. It was about what if that deal that Vec, what's his name? Bill
Oh,
Vec?
Yeah.
this is and you know what? This is somebody who was invited to this because that's Peter Schilling.
Peter Schilling.
Eh,
Uh,
eh,
the summer of, let's say, baseball or something. It's the premise is what if that deal for the what was it, the Browns to get the top
no,
five Negro leaguers.
Vec offered to buy the Philadelphia A's from Connie Mack.
Right.
Yeah, I know this book. I
Yeah,
was
but
about to bring it up myself.
he essentially works out a deal to buy Cool Papa Bell, Josh Gibson, Satchel Paige, and I think Judy Johnson. And the deal is
I
going to
think it was a
happen.
whole
It's a great,
team.
great book. Schelling, Peter Schelling. I had lunch
Peter
with him.
Schilling.
Real nice guy.
Sounds great.
Man, I highly recommend it.
I'll have to look
Give
that
me
one
a
up.
second, and I'll End of Baseball is the name of the End of Baseball is the
Yeah.
name of the book.
It's a great
But
book.
and this is where I was about to go. He also has a book about Carl Barks at Uncivilized. So
Oh, well, there you go. A
he's another
crossover.
baseball and comics guy.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah, we almost had him last November, and I reached out for this one too, and we just didn't manage to connect. So one day he will be in one of these conversations. Mark my words. um, but yeah, no, I was a little frustrated at the way Josh Gibson was portrayed in that book because it had him in the depths of addiction, though there's some evidence to indicate that he might have been. So I'm not. I
Yeah,
can't like
all according to what year it was.
right. I can't be completely unhappy about it because the other thing is like it portrayed it in a way like one of the things that shocked me for a second and a half and then made me go, "Oh, no, that makes perfect sense," is when I discovered that Louis Armstrong was a total pothead.
Hmm.
But like he gave an interview once where he got asked about it and he's like, "Dude, I played all of these places." Listed off like the biggest music halls of the era. And he's like, "And I had to walk through the back door of every one of them."
Yeah.
And he's like, "So I could be pissed off or I can get high. I make better music when I'm high than when I'm pissed off."
And he lived 5 minutes away from Shea Stadium in Corona.
Right.
Yeah. There's another book that I really love, Game Six, uh, about the Carlton Fisk home run, that series. Mark
Oh.
Frost didn't, here's another connection to comics. Didn't Mark Frost write the one of the Fantastic Four Silver Surfer movies? Or am I crazy?
Quite possible.
Who?
That's a great
Mark
book, man.
Frost?
That's one of my top three
The
favorite
Twin Peaks guy?
baseball books. Everybody's looking it up.
Mark Frost, the
Yeah.
co-creator of Twin Peaks. Different
Is
Mark
he?
Frost.
No, that's probably a different Mark Frost.
Well, now
That's the-
I have to do research because
Well, the
that
Twin
would be
Peaks
crazy
guy
awesome.
Was in fact the writer
the-
of the Michael Chiklis
Ah.
Fantastic Four movies. So
Then
you were
that's got to be
correct,
him.
sir.
Intriguing.
But did he also write the baseball book? That's what we have
Well,
to
that
find
is the
out.
question.
New York Times bestselling.
He did.
Yeah, it is. It is the same guy.
Is it really?
Yeah, so he
Yes.
co-created Twin Peaks. So it's the
Jack
same
of all
guy.
trades.
And it
There you
actually
go.
looks like he's got another book called
The Grand Slam.
The Grand Slam is about Bobby Joe. No, that's golf.
Oh, I see. That's what happens when you make assumptions.
Not nearly as interesting. There was another one that I was trying to find because it looked like it was a Grand Slam. No, the matches or no, greatest game ever played. A true story. Is that No, that's another
I was gonna say
golfer.
we're also just assuming that's baseball, but I think that's one of the interesting things about baseball.
Doesn't he know that like golf is what you do when you
Yes.
can't swing a
When you
baseball
can't,
bat
yes.
anymore?
Well, Mike Trout has opened a golf course
Of course he
with
has.
Tiger Woods. Like that's the big thing that
I
they
mean,
do.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they all golf, but like I think
Yeah, Greg Maddux was apparently an insane golfer. I
was he
remember
really?
SI an SI column. I think it was oh God, who Rob, do you remember who got to cover Maddox the most at SI?
Oh gosh, no, I have no idea.
It's somebody. I think it was Tom Verducci.
Sounds right.
But like the beginning of the column was like Tom Verducci went up to some other person that knew Maddox well and started the conversation with. So I was golfing with Greg Maddux the other day, and the guy said, "Let me guess, off the tree, through the sand trap onto the green." And he's like, "No," and gave some other crazy thing that had happened.
That's crazy.
But yeah, no, apparently Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz like spent almost every off day and often the days before games that they weren't pitching out golfing.
Who was the fish? Ted Williams? Did he fish? He competed.
Ted Williams
Yeah.
was a fisherman. Fly fishing. Fly
Gotta have
fishing.
hobbies.
Combat pilot. Ted Williams did a lot of things. And apparently when he was taking batting practice, with every swing, he'd say, "I'm Ted fucking Williams."
Hence the song.
Yep. Baseball project.
Who was the guy who was fishing, the Hall of Famer who was fishing who died? The guy he was fishing with fell over and he tried to save him in the water.
I know
don't
who you're talking
remember.
about because he was quite young, wasn't? Or he had come over from Cuba. Was that it?
No, he was I want to say it was like Archie Vaughan or somebody
Oh.
like that.
Older than
Charlie Gehringer, somebody like that. Like a great, not
Yeah.
real visible, but a Hall of Famer. I think it might have been Archie Vaughan. Sorry for that.
So many.
Sorry for the
No.
ridiculous trivia question.
No, that's why I have these because among other things, particularly people who are into both comics and baseball are that much more likely to be the ones that are into the esoteric, weird, cool stuff about baseball. So I love that we get to share these little nuggets of whatever.
Well, that's
Now
a good
I have
answer
to
to Mark's question, which is it worth it to get back into baseball? Which is, there's so many different ways to be into
Right.
baseball, right?
Yeah.
You don't
Yeah.
have to be watching the games necessarily to,
I mean,
yeah.
I probably only watch maybe 3 games a year on TV.
Wow. I watch a lot of
That's about
games
the
on
same as me.
TV. I watch a lot of games
almost,
on TV.
but there's almost never a day where I don't read something about baseball.
Yep.
And I go out of my way to go to at least 3 or 4 major league games and at least 3 or 4 minor league games every year. There's certain people that when I get together with them, Dennis Kitchen couldn't make it today, but like the last time he was in Milwaukee, it's like, oh, the Brewers are out of town. Are there any base? We went to a Milwaukee Milkmen game because it was a baseball game.
I'm the same way. I watch about maybe 3 games a year too, if they happen to be on national TV. And last fall, when the Mariners made the playoffs and went as deep as they did, I watched all of those games. And, by the end of it, I was fucking exhausted.
It's a lot of time.
I mean, I was almost a little bit relieved, even though I wanted them to go all the way. But, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine somebody watching, 162 games on television.
I watch a lot of games, not 162, but I definitely watch a few a week on TV, especially at the beginning of the season. As the Angels start to really fall off, it gets harder to emotionally steel myself for like 9 hours of bad baseball.
What drives me crazy is that the playoffs are always during New York Comic Con.
Right.
So when a team I like isn't in the playoffs, they're a fun distraction. But when my team is in the playoffs, it's extremely stressful.
Yeah.
on top of what is already a stressful week.
Yeah. No, I I love going to games. And part of it is I was spoiled. I still don't think that there's been a better production crew than the Arnie Harris, Joe Corneo Cubs crew that was literally their producer and director for like 50 years on WGN. And they figured out camera placings before any other team did, et cetera, et cetera. And I think Rob, have a great day. Thank you so much for joining us. And one of these days, I'm going to get out. Rob is the commissioner of the West Coast League, a wood bat summer.
Cool.
The
It's
Portland
true.
Pickles.
If anyone's
that I
ever
need
up
to-
here,
Need to
we
go
have,
to a game
15
for.
teams and
That's
all
cool.
over the place. So let me know.
I got to get
Yeah.
down there. I have a friend who has season tickets
To what? Pickles games?
to the Pickles. Yeah,
It's a great team name.
I gotta get down there.
Big party every night there. A lot
Yeah.
of fun.
Rob,
All right, take
before
care,
you
everybody. Thanks.
wait, before you go, Rob, I
Yeah.
did have a quick question. I'm assuming you've been to like every major league stadium.
I have not. I think I'm at like 38 or 39, but some of those are defunct, and I haven't been to all of the new ones.
My question is about Candlestick. Had you ever been to Candlestick?
I was there in the summer of 1999.
Oh, wow. I went to
speaking of-
Candlestick the year before you did.
Speaking of weather, I knew all the stories. Right, it was July, and I took a heavy coat, and I was still cold. It was
Wow.
insane. It was the most dramatic ballpark experience I ever had. I'm very glad I got to do it once.
Yeah.
Wow. I wish I had gone.
Yeah, it was something else.
I enjoyed my night at Candlestick.
That's my like if I could go back in time, I'd watch Willie Mays at Candlestick. But also like I wrote
I'd
about
watch him at
this.
the Polo Grounds.
Yeah, well, there you go. That Candlestick, it's the crazy bit, right? It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you have the chaos, and I was looking it up, and it's because of the placement of the park. It was in like the worst spot, and so when the gusts of wind came in, like it rolled around the basin and just made this crazy, weird. And like apparently, if they had moved it just like a few hundred feet or something, like a mile or two, like it would have been totally fine. But it was just that one placement.
You can see it from the freeway, and it was
Yeah.
just exposed out there.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rob. I didn't mean to hold you up.
That's
I
all
just
right.
had-
No, I had a couple minutes. I just got to take a shower before my haircut. So good to see everybody. Take care.
Have a
Take
good
care,
one,
Rob.
Rob.
Here.
I think I have to jet as well.
I know Eric needs to run too.
I do
Yeah,
too,
there.
actually.
Always
Well, then we should wrap up. Everybody give me
Singularity
one
is
thing that they
collapsing.
hope to see this year.
Ooh, one thing.
It isn't our team winning the World Series.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the
Knows that
cheapie.
saying.
I'll
Yeah.
go with a healthy Mariners rotation, which I think
Okay.
will be the key to their success.
I'll do the spiteful thing, and I'll say the Dodgers not even making the postseason.
It's very
I like
possible.
It. I like it.
I mean, we were talking about the weaknesses earlier, so it's very possible,
The
and it is an
Larry
older
David
team.
spite vote. Yeah.
I would like to see Mike Trout have like a stellar like Mike Trout year.
That would be great.
I
I'm
would
gonna
like to
go
see
with-
that too, as long as the Angels finish in last place.
There you go. We're all in spite mode.
Continuing the
I'm,
spite theme.
I'm going to go with something hyper specific. I have never seen a triple play in person.
Oh,
So
that'd be
I'm
fun.
hoping that at some game that I'm at, I get to see a triple play. And what I'm like, if there's like a sub hope, I hope that it's not a 5-4-3. I mean, I'd love to see
Yeah.
a 5-4-3. That's really cool. But I'd really love to see one of those just wacky, like 8-2-4-3-6
Right.
triple play.
I saw a great one last year that was 663.
Right.
That was nuts it was Zach Neto against Shohei Ohtani, which was hilarious because they had been
Right.
teammates, but it was crazy.
Unassisted triple play.
Yes, I
That
guess
would be fun,
technically
too.
it would. Yeah, that would be ideal. It was almost there.
I had Peter Parker had to do an unassisted triple play.
There you go.
Spider-Man kids
He can
comics.
do it.
I crammed baseball into comics.
I remember
Humanly
that.
possible.
I remember that. Yeah,
All
I
right,
don't even
folks,
care what
I gotta
level.
go.
Some of the coolest things I've ever seen have been at minor league games. I got to see Wilson Contreras get on 5 different ways in a game without actually getting a hit.
There you go. There you go. I mean, you were talking about that crazy game earlier. I literally saw this week the spring training Dodgers at Angels. Like, it was, I think they had 3 hits and they like walked in like 8 runs. It was unbelievable. But to be fair, it was like our minor leaguers against like the starting lineups.
Oh, their starting lineup.
Oh, it was like a guy you've never heard of against like Shohei Ohtani, and like it was.
Well, did you see he got struck out by an electrician in the World
I
Baseball
did see. Well, he's not an electrician. He's actually an electrical engineer. They've come out with the clarifying information.
In some ways, that's even more embarrassing.
Yes. Like, this is a high level
an electrical
day
engineer
jobber.
you
Yes.
expect, or an electrician you expect to at least be like early
but
whatever.
no.
Electrical engineer is some dude who sits at a desk.
Shows you baseball's all a mind game, right?
It is.
It's all a mind game. This was a lot of fun. Thank you. It was great to chat, everyone.
Always a blast, everybody.
And I'm at Y7, Dad. So hopefully you'll see me over the weekend.
I will make certain that I see you over the weekend, and hopefully you come to my panel. So
hopefully I get on a plane. That's
that
tomorrow
too.
with LaGuardia. We'll find out whether or not I get.
For Rob Neyer and Eric Reynolds, Tiffany Babb, Fred Van Lente, Mark Chiarello, this has been the opening day baseball and comics roundtable on 22 panels, and we will see you after the next page.